Welcome back, legends. I hope you're all fantastic. It is Friday and it is time for another installment of Friday Q&A. Thank you so much for this week's questions. As always, if you've got questions for next week's video, put them in the comment section below. If you want to support my channel directly, there are links to my Patreon and the music I make with my band Ragdoll in the video description down there or over there, wherever it is. Furthermore, if you want to come and chat about filthy guitar tones, coffee, cats, or anything in particular, there's a link to my Discord server also in the video description. Let's rip straight into this week's questions. How would I describe the experience of playing the John Petrucci Ernie Ball Music Man versus something like my PRS stuff? This question popped up quite a bit on the video that I did with the Majesty last Sunday. Again, shout out to my buddy Kale for letting me borrow his Majesty and his JP2C. A few people asked me the same question on the JP2C video, and one of my students asked me this today, and we came to the conclusion that we could make a car analogy and this would make a lot of sense. So to me, you know, if a Fender Strat is something just like a Ford sedan, then playing a PRS is like getting to drive a Bentley. You know, it feels like a car, it drives like a car, it's just a very, very nice, refined version of a car. Whereas something like the Majesty, because it is so streamlined and engineered and has this real curated feel about it, there's a bunch of really interesting design choices on it, and it's incredibly easy to play. It's really, really fast, and it's got all these kind of modern features on it. That's more like an F1 car. So I'll stick with that analogy. You know, Bentley, maybe Aston Martin. So if you want to like kind of be James Bond, grab a PRS. If you want to be whoever's in the Formula One, I still remember like Michael Schumacher, but Lewis Hamilton, maybe grab an F1. Does that mean John Petrucci is the Lewis Hamilton of guitar? Do I have any tips for curating stage presence, and do I feel more like an entertainer or a musician when I'm playing on stage? This question was specifically asked about Ragdoll shows where Cam's sitting behind the drum kit, playing loud drums, making noises there. Ryan is often tied behind a microphone and playing bass, so he's either absolutely screaming his guts off or he is standing back trying to take a break while I'm playing a guitar solo and playing bass. So I often describe my role in the band as being the hype guy and the designated driver and then the guitar player, probably in that order. So that probably answers your question there. What I found was, because I don't sing, basically, I sing some backing vocals, but even then you don't want to hear me sing that much. So Ryan's doing all the heavy lifting. I get the chance to play guitar and be an absolute idiot on stage. So I try to make the absolute most out of that. And you know what? Playing Ragdoll songs is really, really fun. Playing guitar is really, really fun. And I love performing. So I like to just kind of bounce around and have a big smile on my face. I always think of Eddie Van Halen as such a great example of having a great time on stage, trying to play as good as you can, and then really setting a good example for the audience. If you're on stage having a good time, jumping around, then people in the audience are going to feel less self-conscious about doing the same thing. And even if they feel too self-conscious to do it, I really only have control and agency over the good time that I can have. So I try to maximize that. And believe me, you will lose your sense of shame very, very quickly. So I think doing a live gig, maybe it's a 60-40 mix of being entertaining and then actually playing your parts correctly. I've kind of learned to live that, you know, if you make a mistake live, life goes on. There's always another bar of music coming up. There's always more guitar solos to come in the set. So just try not to worry too much about it. And in fact, I'm convinced that's the reason some people like to come watch us play, because, you know, it's very obvious when someone makes a mistake and we'll laugh about it. And, you know, that's life and that's live music. It's meant to be a little bit unpredictable. We actually did a show Wednesday night and Ryan's eldest son, who is 12, came along and we convinced him to get on stage for the last song and headbang with us. And he was really, really reluctant to do it, but then he did it and it was such a good time. And everyone in the audience went ballistic because, hey, it's a 12-year-old with long hair rocking out. He even had a little bit of a sing as well, which was just so cool. It was a real Kodak moment. Got a few what do you reckon about these bands? So let's peel those ones off. This one is Girish and the Chronicles, I believe they're called. I think they're an Indian hard rock band. I had not heard of them, but I did get a chance to check it out. I listened to one song and I really, really liked what I heard. Really liked the rhythm guitar playing in it. If I was 18 and I heard these guys, I would be so jealous because that's exactly what I was trying to do when I was that age. So it looks like they're also having a bunch of fun rocking out as well. So I'll put a link to the video that I watched in the video description. Thank you for that question. Very cool to hear some hard rock out of India. Bill Levity of Firehouse. I really like Firehouse. All That She Wrote is one of my favorite songs from the era. That is on my 80s hard rock playlist that I've put together. And Bill's a really, really good guitar player. I think an example of just kind of how high the standard was, how high the standard was for just having to have your chops together in the late 80s, early 90s. And, you know, Bill was playing stuff that I guess everybody was playing at the time, but now you rarely hear that kind of level of choppery going on, and that is the official term for it right there, choppery. And I felt like there was another, what do you reckon? River Dogs. I'm only aware of River Dogs because of that one album Vivian Campbell did with them, and I will be honest, I haven't listened to them for at least a decade, and I feel like I've only checked out a couple of songs. So there's my Friday night. I'm going to go back and listen to that album and see if I like it. I think Viv was in that band very briefly before joining Def Leppard, and continues to be in Def Leppard, and had some of the most amazing guitar sounds I've ever heard when I got to go see Viv with Def Leppard. That was awesome. I've also seen Viv with Last in Line, and that was the total opposite. Les Paul plugged straight into an angle, just raw power, and then the Leppard stuff was just glorious, greasy, thick guitar tones. So I'm a very big Vivian Campbell fan. What do I think about Tony Iommi's signature fragrance, and should it really be called Stank Face? It shouldn't be, because that's what I want my signature fragrance to be. I don't know how many people would buy, you know, a little bottle of perfume with that face on it. But I actually really liked the song they put together for the advertisement for it. So anytime you get to hear a new Tony Iommi riff is a good day. So I actually really enjoyed it for that. But I don't think I'll go and buy the fragrance. I'm not a massive fragrance person. Maybe I will remain that way until smell-o-vision is invented, and then I'll actually have to put some work into it, because believe me, I wouldn't want you all to smell what's in here. I haven't had a shower yet today. Look at my hair. It's greasy. It's gross. Save me, Tony Iommi. Is Cam a fan of Eric Carr from Kiss? Yes, but I think he's a bigger fan of Eric Singer. My whole awareness of Kiss was I Was Made for Loving You and I Love It Loud. And for the longest time, I thought Gene was the only lead singer in Kiss. And over the years, Cam has duly educated me in the ways of Kiss. And like a lot of people, I just went, well, you know, it's Ace and Paul and Gene and Peter Criss, and that's all there ever was. And listening to 80s Kiss, especially the lineup with Bruce and Eric Carr, there's some of their absolute best songs, some of the best playing on Kiss records from that era. And Eric Singer's obviously fantastic as well. I think Cam has a signature singer snare as well, but Kiss are his favorite band, so I would say that Peter and Eric are probably equally massive influences on their playing. Following on from that, do I have any drum programming tips to make programmed drums seem more like something a real drummer would play? Probably the best advice I can give you is to find some pre-recorded drum loops played by drummers and try to reverse engineer them. This is something that I just didn't do for years, and I really did it the hard way when I first got Pro Tools and started programming beats. They were awful. They were all just like double kick all the time, velocities on 127, only quarter note hi-hats, hot garbage. And then anytime Cam would come in and play drums to a riff that I'd written, it was always infinitely more interesting. So using pre-made grooves is way easier now. You know, if you've got something like Easy Drummer or Superior Drummer or the Slate stuff or some of the Get Good Drum stuff, there's so many great drum plugins out there that come with pre-made grooves as well. Experiment with those and scroll through if you audition them until you find something you like, and then just look at the piano roll and figure out what they're doing. And even then, just go online and learn a few little drum rudiments or a few basic drum beats, and that will give you a much better insight to what a drummer might actually play. And even then, a real drummer will be like, this is garbage. I'll do it myself. For anyone who has never gigged with a real tube amp, do I think they would know what they want to get out of a modeler? Basically, do you think previous experience with guitar amps and pedals is essential before diving off the deep end into something like a Fractal or a Helix or a Kemper? It definitely doesn't hurt. One reason I gravitated so much to the Fractal platform is I've been lucky enough to own and play a lot of real-world amps, including some really great examples of classic amps, and dialing up a plexi or dialing up a deluxe reverb or a rectifier on the Fractal stuff immediately felt familiar, and I found that I can apply the tricks that I would apply to the real amps on the Fractal stuff, and it works. And probably one of the most important amp-related discoveries for me, this is on the other foot, was getting into the Mark series amps, which I'd never really played around with before in the real life, and anytime I hadn't liked them, and trying them out on the Fractal, learning how to dial them in, and then going over to the real world amps and doing those same tricks. And it magically worked because the modeling's accurate. So for something like an Axe FX, I think if you're used to a real world amp, the Axe will feel familiar, and vice versa. For some other platforms where they're maybe not doing component-based modeling, or it's more just kind of like, profiling or something like that, you might not get super accurate results. But at the end of the day, if it sounds good, that's all that matters. And, I started off on a Zoom 707. I thought that sounded amazing. And you just go through this journey. I think learning about good sounds, like anything, is a process, and it's an iterative process. And there's no fast way to get around it. There's no substitute for experience anyway. All right, if your New Year's resolution is to read more, do I have any reading suggestions, including cookbooks or anything related to that? One book that I've really enjoyed, and this is now a Netflix series, is Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat, Samin Nosrat. Really, really good. You don't have to know anything about cooking, and this, I think, dispels a lot of the kind of mythology around it, and I love the way it's broken down into sections. There's some great recipe ideas in here, and it just kind of really fosters the idea, kind of like music, if you want to get into cooking food, approach it with a really open mind, almost like a childlike mentality, and start with the basics. And this is just fantastic. It's a great read. The Netflix series, if you don't want to read the book, is really, really good. I think it's Netflix anyway. Another one is the World Atlas of Coffee, if you're a coffee nerd, which I'm a bit of a coffee nerd. I'm sure a lot of you watching by James Hoffman. If you don't follow James's channel, James is the be-all and end-all of coffee on YouTube, basically. And one of the reasons I'm such a big coffee nerd, and also an incredibly funny British man. So this is a really, really good book. This was given to me as a gift by my buddy Ed. So thank you, Ed, so much for sending me this. Basically, it goes through different preparation methods and then goes through different growing regions in different countries. So you'll have, for example, here, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and it will talk about different regions where coffee is grown and traceability and all these kind of things. And it's really, really interesting. And then if you like a little bit of history, I read this over the break, The Storm Before the Storm by Mike Duncan. Mike is responsible for the amazing History of Rome podcast, as well as the Revolutions podcast, which I love and look forward to every single week. And yeah, the beginning of the end of the Roman Republic, really, really interesting. The stuff they don't teach you in school. And Mike's a great writer as well as a fantastic podcaster. So yeah, a bit of history, a bit of coffee, a bit of cooking. Really depends what you're into. I feel like I should offer a music bio. Pete Townshend's biography is really interesting as well, if you want something that really gets challenging and pretty dark in some places as well. And yeah, I've almost finished it. But yeah, really, really interesting insight into the 60s in the UK and his childhood and a bunch of issues around that. And yeah, just fascinating Really, really fascinating. Our fifth one, this will be the last one, Nick Mason's Pink Floyd book with all the posters, and I can't remember the name of it, but that is one of my all-time favorite things to read ever, with, you know, all the behind-the-scenes pictures of them in the studio and them on holiday together and stuff from the Division Bell tour. Really, really amazing. And just Nick's pretty witty and, again, a very, very good writer and a well-read person as well. So there are some suggestions from me. And that's all for this week. Thank you so much for your questions this week. If you've got questions for next week, put them in the comments section below. Hope you all have a fantastic weekend. Stay safe, be good to one another, and I'll see you next time.
We forgot one.
Ah, there you go. And Metal Cats, that can be the 6th book. I haven't even read this yet. Look at that cat. Look at this cat's face. Love it.